Well, hi there and Happy New Year. This is Steve Lopez for ChessBase Workshop. It just occurred to me, just as I was starting this video, that this is my last ChessBase Workshop for 2010. So in case I forget at the end of the video, I just want to wish you a Happy New Year. Hope you get everything you want from 2011, that you have a really awesome year. Of course, it is the holidays. Traditionally, it's become kind of a ChessBase Workshop holiday tradition, I guess, to do weird position searches at the end of the year, primarily because I'm tired, I'm lazy, I'm celebrating, and I don't feel like working real hard. But there is a point to these videos, and that is that I do get to show you how to do some position searches, how to show you some things in the search mask that sometimes we don't ordinarily get to. Traditionally, I look for under promotions, and we're going to do one again today, but it's not going to be like before. We've done bishop and rook under promotions in the past. There are reasons why you might under promote a pawn to a rook or a bishop, primarily that if you go to a queen, you might set up a stalemate situation and snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, as it were. You know, that does happen, but sometimes you come across games in the database. We've looked at some of them in articles in the past, and possibly in videos, I don't recall, but where there's an under promotion to a bishop, and you wonder why, because there wasn't any stalemate threat. And it may be because in a time scramble, somebody grabbed the bishop instead of a queen. Maybe somebody was just showing off. Maybe the game score was wrong. Maybe they did promote to a queen, and somebody put it in as a bishop for some reason, and because all of the moves that followed of that particular piece were on diagonals, nobody caught it. I mean, it's hard to say, and we don't know because there aren't notes to some of these games, so we just really don't know. But when you under promote, obviously, normally when you do an under promotion of a pawn, you're going to go for a knight instead of a queen. I mean, a bishop or a rook generally doesn't make sense unless there's a stalemate possibility, because the queen obviously combines the moves of the bishop and a rook. So generally you're going to go for a queen. The only other possibility is a knight. So you sometimes go for a knight because you can force checkmate. But while I was thinking about this earlier today, I thought, how many times? I mean, we have a database of 4 million games, Mega Database 2010, that I'm using here because my 2011 has not yet arrived. In those 4 million plus games, how many times does a knight promote and checkmate on the spot? In other words, you push that pawn, turn it into a knight, and the game is over. It's checkmate right then. How many times does that occur? And I got to thinking about that. You know, how many times in 4 million games? You got to think maybe it's a couple hundred times would be a reasonable guess, right? Well, let's find out, shall we? Here's what we'll do. First of all, we go to Mega Database 2010. Of course, you can do this on any database, but this is my reference database, my master database. We'll right-click on it, select Search. Search mask comes up. Of course, normally the game data tab would come up, but you go over to maneuvers. We're going to do a maneuver search. You have different ways to set up maneuvers. You can do a white maneuver, a black maneuver, that's what W and B are, or WB, which does not stand for Warner Brothers. It stands for white or black. That's what we want. So it can be either color piece, should say either color pawn, to be proper about it, and that's the next thing that we set up. We go here, we can pull this down by clicking on this little arrow, and it gives us all the different abbreviations for all the different pieces. So of course we're going to be promoting a pawn, so we click P. So now you see question mark pawn. Question mark meaning question mark's a wild card. It means in this case either white or black. Doesn't have to be one or the other. It could be either one. Pawn. Normally in these two boxes you would put square locations. You would put, you know, H7 to H8 or something for promoting a pawn. But in this case we don't really care. We don't care what square the pawn is on or what square it moves to. So we'll leave those as question marks. We come down here, and we're not capturing anything, so we don't need to put a check in this box and pick a piece. But we do need to check promotion. It's a pawn move. The pawn has to promote. So it can move from any square to any square as long as it promotes. So now you see question mark pawn, white or black pawn, moving from one square to another square, equals means promotion, and then a question mark. Well, we got to change that last question mark, and here's how we do it. You have another pull down right here next to promotion. To the right, select knight. We're going to select knight promotion, but there's one more element to our search that we need to add, and that is that we want mate on the spot. So we will check mate. And it puts a check in the check box as well, because check and mate go hand in hand. Here it is a checkmate, so you get both. It just automatically puts one in the check box. Note, though, by the way, that you could just put a check there, and it's only a knight promoting with check, but we want to mate. So when we click mate, it goes check and mate. The other thing we want to fill in is moves. From move 5, which is a little early, but we'll let it stand, it doesn't matter, to where we want to cut it off at. The normal cutoff is move 40. I did this a short while ago where I put 60 in there. And I think that's reasonable, but let's bump it up to 80 just for chuckles. So it's going to search every move of every game from moves 5 to 80 for a move in which, you see it up here where it's highlighted, either color pawn moves from one square to another square, promoting to a knight with checkmate. That's how you do it. Really simple stuff. Click OK and sit back and wait. And notice right away we get 2 games. Bing, bing, just that quick. It says down in the lower right hand corner where we have our status bar, it says we're going to take about 2 minutes. Now it's down to a minute. It's actually searching it fairly rapidly, considering that I have video capture software running, which does kind of drain some computer resources, some of the processor time. It's going pretty quick. But I've noticed that it's about a quarter of the way through, and the first game it finds is from 1949, then it jumps to 54, then to the 1970s, 80s, then into two from the 70s, one from the 80s, and then we start getting a few from the 90s. And we've only got 16 games now, and we're almost halfway done. And that does not bode well for our idea of there being maybe a couple hundred games in which this occurred. I said 100, 200 was my ballpark estimate. We're halfway through, we got 19 games. A few more popping up. Almost 3/4 done, and we've only got 30 games. Just about finished now, 95%. That's it, we're done. Let's have a look. We'll take the scroll bar over here and we'll scroll down and see what our final tally is. 43 games. 43 out of 4 million in which a knight promotes with instant checkmate. Now notice that since the knight checkmate occurs at the end of the game, that when you click as the last move, sometimes when you click on a game, it doesn't jump you right to the end. Okay? So double click and you can play through it. And notice when you get here at the end. And there it is. There's your checkmate. That king's going nowhere. King's got nowhere to go now. Cut off all around. That's pretty cool. That's a nice kind of an open board mate, by the way. And these are cool to look at. These are good training for you to go through the ends of these games. And I'll tell you why. It's really hard, at least I have trouble with it, spotting checkmates with the knight where the king isn't on the back rank. I have trouble with that. I've been playing this game for years, and I still have trouble with that. So this is something I will probably sit down when this video is done and go through some of these games and take a look at how the checkmates occur. There it is. Look at that. Wow, that's really cool. And you just kind of look at it and go, huh. I mean, first thing you think is, oh, the king can run here. Nope, bishop down here's got that square covered. So this is these mates are awesome. I mean, the king is just cut off. And people that can find these things really have my admiration. Because as I said, I have a hard time with this. We'll jump a little bit later in the game, look at another one. Oh, for crying out loud, look at that. And we're starting to see a pattern here, by the way, which is the rook cuts off the king, and the pawn gets these 2 squares, and you've got a king behind a white pawn, notice, and the king can't come back because between the king and the pawn cuts off these squares, and then the rook's got these. And that's cool checkmate. So anyway, that was an interesting thing. I was just curious, how often does a knight come in and or a pawn come in, promote to a knight and checkmate? And we get the answer: 43 games in a database of over 4 million games. So it doesn't happen nearly as often as I had guessed. So I learned something today about that, and when I play through these games a little bit later here, when this video is done, hopefully I'll learn a little something about checkmating a king out in the center of the board, delivering a mate with a knight, which is a tough thing to do. In fact, if you're familiar with Laszlo Polgar's big honking book of chess problems, there's a whole section right near the beginning of these kinds of problems. So that's something else to look at as well. So I might look at that book a little bit later on. In the meantime, till next week, when we'll be doing a ChessBase workshop for the new year of 2011, Happy New Year. And please do be safe. If you're celebrating this holiday season, be safe, be careful. I want you around for next week's ChessBase workshop and plenty more after that, okay? So be safe, be careful, but still do, please, have fun.